Coming up on Locked On Dodgers, there is still one Japanese star left on the free agent market after the Dodgers signed Shohei Ohtani and Yoshinobu Yamamoto. Could Shota Imanaga be next? We will also talk about the Red Sox. They traded Chris Sale to the Braves. Was that an indicator that they are open for business? And is there anybody in the Red Sox bargain bin that the Dodgers might be interested in? And finally, we will talk about old friend Yasiel Puig. Could he be a fit for the Dodgers' needs in the outfield? That's what's on tap. So let's get Locked On Dodgers.
You are Locked On Dodgers, your daily Los Angeles Dodgers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, Dodger fans, this is Locked On Dodgers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks to our everydayers for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen every weekday morning. Remember, this show is free and available on all podcast platforms and on YouTube simply by searching for Locked On Dodgers. Please subscribe wherever you're watching or listening right now. My name is Jeff Snider. My co-host next to me is Vince Samperio. Vince and I are both lifelong Dodger fans, just like a lot of you, and we've also both spent time covering the Dodgers in the press box and the locker room. So we're not quite insiders, but we bring you the smart fans perspective on our boys in blue every weekday morning. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 moneyline bet. That's $150 if your team wins. FanDuel.com. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. And Vince, Happy New Year to you. It is January 1st, and most of the time when we record, it's actually the date before we're saying it is, but today, New Year's kind of snuck up on both of us, or at least Monday snuck up on both of us. Usually we're pretty good at remembering that we need to do a podcast on Sunday evening, and we remembered on Sunday evening, but by the time we remembered, you and I were both kind of locked into New Year's Eve festivities with our friends and family, and the good news is I suspect there weren't a lot of people who set their alarms for early January 1st to get up and make sure that we were their first listen, so this thing will go out around 11 a.m., a little after 11 a.m. LA time. And so still time to be the first listen, I think, on New Year's Day.
Yeah, if you were up early and were waiting for us, we apologize. But other than that, enjoy the sleeping in if you stayed up till midnight where we were at. And now we're here. And we're in 2024, Jeff. And spring training starts next month. We can officially say that now. And, it just gets you all excited all over again. Yeah,
that's one of my favorite things about January. Another thing that's underrated is now I know how to refer to the 2023 baseball season again, because, during the season, you say this season. During the postseason, it's still this season. After you get eliminated from the postseason, but the postseason's still going, it's still this season. After the postseason's done, do you still say this season, or do you say this year? Mookie Betts at 39 home runs this year. And the longer you get past the season, by the time you're in December, saying Mookie Betts at 39 home runs this year was still technically accurate last week, but it felt weird. So you start using the word season more, or saying in 2023. But now, boom, it's 24. So now 2023 is last year. 2024 is this coming year. And so now we say Mookie Betts at 39 home runs last year, and the Dodgers will win the World Series this year. And the other thing that I get excited about is we have no idea what 2024 holds, but I think about 1988. I woke up on January 1st, 1988. I was 10 years old. I had no idea it was a special year, and it was 9 and a half months, however long it is between January 1st and late October before I found out that, 1988 is going to be one of my favorite years of my life. And we won't know that until October. That's one of the pitfalls of having your life revolve around a baseball team, that you don't know if it was a fully successful year until late October.
Yeah, at least in the football sense, I can be disappointed at the start of the year because Raiders aren't in the playoffs most of the time. But then I have everything else to look forward to moving forward. So
can't you be pre-disappointed for 2025 already in the Raiders?
Probably. I would. The bets would say yes.
But it's exciting. We are going to treat this year as if it is the special year that the Dodgers win the World Series. And you know what? Hopefully we'll end up being right, and it will go down in history as one of all of our favorite years. They're definitely on the right track, signing Shohei Ohtani and Yoshinobu Yamamoto. There still are some holes in the team. We're going to talk about the outfield hole in our last segment. We're going to talk about other potential holes in the second segment. But first, one of the holes, or at least they plugged some holes in their starting pitching for sure by signing Yamamoto and trading for Tyler Glasnow. Definitely shored up their starting pitching. Some people are still concerned that they don't have any left-handed starting pitching. Clayton Kershaw coming back late in the year could be part of that. But there's also Shota Imanaga, who is a free agent coming over from Japan, and he's available. And over the weekend, the Dodgers were actually linked to him, that there's a possibility they could sign him. The report I saw said he's likely to get 5 years and between $85 and $100 million, I think. What are your thoughts on Imanaga?
Yeah, he obviously would fit the bill in terms of what they need, a guy that can pitch and probably pitch well. And in the sense of the pecking order of a rotation, compared to what Yamamoto's making, compared to what Glasnow's making, compared to, kind of what Ohtani would make in the future, not directly, but indirectly. Imanaga would fit into, a 3 or 4 starter role, which is where he would kind of fit into a rotation right now. So for the Dodgers side, it makes sense, but it's kind of one of those things now where, Imanaga has been linked to the Dodgers, which makes sense. Roki Sasaki, who, is supposedly going to ask to get posted next year, already linked to the Dodgers, makes sense. There's Murakami, the third baseman, already been linked to the Dodgers. So, I have a feeling obviously all these guys want to play with Ohtani and Yamamoto and, want to be on a good team. So when they do come over, the Dodger interest is going to be automatic, but I don't see the Dodgers just going and becoming, Team Japan of the U.S. But again, if the players make sense, it doesn't really matter where they're from. So
yeah, exactly. It's if he feels a need, and whether he's from Japan or Kentucky or Dominican Republic or whatever, that doesn't matter at all. And the fact is, he is a good left-handed pitcher. His strikeout stuff, he actually, he's similar to Yamamoto in strikeout rate and stuff. That he's left-handed. He's older. He's about 4 or 5 years older than Yamamoto, which is a big part of why his contract is expected to be 5 years instead of 10 years or 13 years or whatever. But he definitely, with the Dodgers not needing an ace, when you look at what they have, Imanaga could definitely, especially if they are leaning towards doing a 6-man rotation, which would make a lot of sense for a lot of reasons. And I saw, I can't remember the guy's name now. He was on with Jeff Spiegel over on one of those other podcasts, and the injury expert is his Twitter handle. I can't remember what his name is, but he was talking about Glasnow. But they also talked a little bit about the idea of a 6-man rotation. And he said it only makes sense to do a 6-man rotation if you have 6 good pitchers, which is kind of common sense, but also, it's pretty, I think it gets overlooked. And so if the Dodgers are thinking about a 6-man rotation, adding a guy like Imanaga, which then does let them bring up their younger guys more slowly, it gives them more depth. People are going to get hurt. They're going to have little injuries. They're probably going to have big injuries, if anything, if the past is any indicator of the future. And so a guy like Imanaga could definitely, in addition to bringing a left-handed arm to the rotation, just give them, when you've got Walker Buehler, who's there's questions about how much he'll pitch, if he'll start at the beginning of the season or if they'll ramp him up slowly. Glasnow always has health questions. Bobby Miller is going into his 2nd season. They're probably not going to want him to go out there and throw 240 innings. He'll definitely, as long as he's healthy, he's going to be a workhorse. But, there's so many questions about everybody. And then Yamamoto, who's never pitched on a every 5th day schedule. I feel like Imanaga makes a lot of sense for the Dodgers.
Yeah, especially at that price, considering what's left on the market. There's nobody, other than Jordan Montgomery and Blake Snell, who are going to make more realistically than what Imanaga is going to get. There's not really any guys you're going to give 3, 4, or 5 year deals. I mean, you get Imanaga for 5 years. You have 3 spots in your rotation locked in for 5 years under contract. You have Bobby Miller locked in for 5 under team control, plus everyone else that's kind of behind him. So you're setting yourself up to be already good in the future, to where every other development prospect becomes a little bit of a blue chip trade prospect rather than necessarily a someone that's going to affect the Dodgers, or if they do, that's still a good sign. So yeah, it makes sense. This will kind of lead into the next part, but one name that we kind of had in mind for the Dodgers in terms of a starting pitcher. Lucas Giolito, he signed with the Red Sox. The Red Sox also made a trade of a starting pitcher to the Braves in Chris Sale. But yeah, the options for the Dodgers are going to continue to get smaller and smaller, and a guy like Imanaga would make a lot of sense.
Yeah, and it wouldn't shock me at all if Imanaga is better in 2024 than both Jordan Montgomery and Blake Snell. We are going to come back, talk about the Red Sox a little bit with their trade of Chris Sale and signing Lucas Giolito. It seems to indicate a direction that they are taking. We're going to talk about whether the Dodgers might be able to take advantage of that direction. So thanks for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen, and please keep it Locked On Dodgers. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. The NFL regular season is wrapping up, but there's still time to get in on the action with FanDuel, America's #1 online sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. That's $150 in bonus bets, win or lose. And the app is so easy to use. There are so many different ways to bet, like live same game parlays, find bets in the new Explore tab, make a parlay in the Parlay Hub, the best way to find popular parlays, and more. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and make your first bet a layup. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL. Hey, we're back. We want to thank you for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen every weekday morning and your first listen of the year, hopefully. We appreciate you everydayers. If you're not an everydayer, it's really easy to become one. Just watch or listen every weekday morning. Remember to check out the 2 24/7 streaming channels that the Locked On Podcast Network has on YouTube, Locked On Sports Today and Locked On Sports Los Angeles. Whether you want the national view of the sports landscape or just the Los Angeles view, those 2 channels are there for you 24/7 on YouTube. And be sure to become a Locked On Dodgers insider by going to joinsubtext.com/LockedOnDodgers. You can join our club. It's just a few bucks a month with a 2-week free trial, and it's text-based, so you will get text messages from us, sometimes a few a day. Sometimes we go a day. I don't think we texted much this weekend because it was a holiday weekend, but you'll get our insights and our thoughts on breaking news, rumors, etc. And you can interact with us, reply to us. We'll get back in with you, have some back and forth. It's a lot of fun. So go to joinsubtext.com/LockedOnDodgers. And with that said, let's jump into our next segment. The Red Sox signed Lucas Giolito, traded Chris Sale. Seems to there have been rumblings that they are open to moving other big contracts to kind of, maybe they want to reset their payroll a little bit. Giolito was a 2-year deal with an opt-out after the first year, so it's not a long commitment. And it seems like the Red Sox might be open to business. And so as fans of a team like the Dodgers, who have some holes to fill, we start looking. And, anything jump out at you, Vince, of guys who might actually be available from the Red Sox and might fit on the Dodgers?
I don't see much in terms of big salary guys. So Chris Cotillo had reported that at least one free agent had told him, or whatever source had told him, that the Red Sox told them they need to shed more payroll before they can actively pursue him more. So clearly that seems to be something they're going for. But when you look at, what they got on the payroll, there's not a lot. They have money tied up into like 4 guys, and then after that, or 5 guys now with Giolito, but then after that, there's not a lot. The 2 that stand out in terms of biggest contracts that they'd probably want to move, because they're not going to want to move Rafael Devers, I don't think, or Masataka Yoshida, are Trevor Story and Kenley Jansen. Jansen is due to make $16 million next year. Trevor Story is due to make, I think, he's on $22 million next year, and has a few more years on the deal that he signed. Those guys, I don't think they can make sense for the Dodgers, but they're not a need, and definitely not something I'd give up much of value for, especially if you're taking on most of or all the contract.
Yeah, I guess let's talk Kenley Jansen first. I love Kenley Jansen. I think he's a Dodgers legend. I don't think he is the need that the Dodgers have, because I don't think bullpen is a huge need for them. And if they are going bullpen, I think it specifically ought to be a lefty, because that is maybe something that they're lacking. And the more I think about Josh Hader, the more I think a 2-headed closer of Evan Phillips and Josh Hader, where they play the 8th and 9th innings matchups, and one of them pitches the 8th, one of them pitches the 9th. Like I like that a lot. Kenley Jansen, I will always love him. I don't need him to be a Dodger anymore. Trevor Story, the Red Sox still owe him $100 million over the next 4 years, at least. He had a 566 OPS last year. He had a 316 slugging percentage. Trevor Story's big thing. You remember when he came up with the Rockies, he homered in the first 800 games of his career. Now, I think he homered in his first 4 career games or something. And he finished 4th in the Rookie of the Year voting. And he was always a guy with a ton of power. He hit as many as 37 home runs in Colorado. And then he became a free agent, and the Red Sox signed him, and he has been pretty lousy. He had a 737 OPS in 2022, which is a 102 OPS plus, which is actually the same OPS plus as he had his last year with the Rockies. So, the Coors Field effect doesn't always affect people like that, but for Trevor Story, when he had a 102 OPS plus and then a 52 OPS plus, you do start to think, okay, how much of him was a creation of Coors Field? He's very fast. There's that. He led the league in stolen bases in the shortened 2020 season. He's good defensively at shortstop, but I don't know if he can hit anymore. And even when he was a good hitter, he was striking out a ton. And when he's not a good hitter, he had 0.8 WAR last year, and it was only in 43 games. So even if you multiply that by 3 for a full season, that's most of that was defensive value. His offensive value was his offensive WAR was 0.0 last year. And I don't know that the Dodgers need to trade for a 0.0 WAR guy, offensive WAR guy who's getting $100 million over the next 4 years, unless they're really, really nervous about Gavin Lux at shortstop.
Yeah. I mean, even, you take the caveat that, he had Tommy John surgery, I think. So last year he came back from that and, didn't obviously hit very well. We've seen guys come back and hit well right after Tommy, Shohei Ohtani did it. Bryce Harper did it for the most part this year. Corey Seager did it. So it's not a huge excuse, but the fact is you can make the excuse for last year, but then, what about the year before when he struggled a lot in his first year in Boston? And, maybe it's a Boston effect too. We've seen guys go to the Yankees in Boston before and not perform well, and then they go somewhere else and perform well. So you'd be banking on that. Yeah, I think this only makes sense if the Red Sox eat 30 to 50% of the contract at least. And then, you're getting a shortstop who could be, a very good defensive shortstop that could maybe, redefine it or refine his swing with the Dodgers, and you're getting them for, relatively cheap in that sense. And the Red Sox save about 10 mil and everybody calls it good. So yeah, I think it's one of those where I don't think it's going to happen. I can't see it happening. It wouldn't necessarily make the Dodgers much better in terms of a floor. It might make them a little bit better in terms of a ceiling, but you're counting on a lot there to happen, which is 1, the Red Sox eat money, 2, Trevor Story to find his swing, and 3, the Dodgers to be willing to make that move.
Yeah. And then if you, the other name you mentioned briefly, Rafael Devers, that guy can hit. And obviously he'd be upgrade for the Dodgers offensively if they found a place to fit him in. It would mean Max Muncy wasn't playing third base anymore. The problem is, one of the problems is he's making $313 million over the next 10 years. There is a big commitment to him. And, the Red Sox would have to eat some of that money if they were going to send him to the Dodgers. And it seems pretty unlikely that the Red Sox would be interested in eating money to send a guy that they just signed to a big, long 10, 11 year extension. Unless they were really, really desperate to cut payroll. And that's the problem. Cutting payroll, it is, I don't know. You make that commitment. And the other thing is Devers is worse defensively at third base than Max Muncy is. And the big knock on Max Muncy is his defense. And pretty much every stat you look at, Devers is a worse third baseman than Muncy. So I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I want to say for the Red Sox sake, I can't see them doing that. I would hope not for some of the people I know that are fans of the Red Sox. Obviously, I'd love to have Devers bat in the lineup. Defensively, I've never paid attention enough to notice that he wasn't great defensively. But if it came down to it and the Dodgers had a chance again, I'm sure why not. But I don't see that happening. The only other guy out there that makes a decent amount of money, well, before arbitration and everything, is Chris Martin, who he went there on a 2-year deal. But again, he's kind of similar to Jansen, where for what he's making, he doesn't elevate the bullpen enough to justify kind of making that trade if you don't have to.
Yeah, I think that's right. So, if the Dodgers are going to make a trade to the Red Sox, it might be more on the fringes. It doesn't seem like any of these big names are going to be coming over, and the Red Sox. Who knows how open for business they are? Signing Giolito, it's kind of a signing Giolito and trading Sale in the same weekend. It really does kind of encapsulate just how confusing it must be to be a Red Sox fan right now.
Yeah.
We're going to come back in a minute and talk about our old friend Yasiel Puig, who is a free agent, despite what some reports have said on the internet. He's been tearing it up in the Venezuelan league, and could he fill a hole for the Dodgers? We'll talk about it when we come back. So thanks for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen, and please keep it Locked On Dodgers. Hey, we're back. Thanks again for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen every weekday morning. Thanks especially to our everydayers. Remember to check out Locked On Sports Today and Locked On Sports Los Angeles, 2 24/7 streaming channels on YouTube from the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And be sure to go to joinsubtext.com/Locked On Dodgers to become a Locked On Dodgers insider. You can get text messages from us with our thoughts on rumors, news, etc., and just miscellaneous interaction with us via text message. It's a lot of fun. It's just a few bucks a month with the 14-day free trial. So be sure to check that out at joinsubtext.com/Locked On Dodgers. And with that said, let's jump into our last segment, Vince. The Dodgers probably still need an outfielder. They have guys on the roster. They could field a starting lineup right now, but I'm not sure it's their ideal starting lineup. We've talked a lot about Randy Arozarena. We've talked a little bit about Lane Thomas and Jorge Soler and a few different guys as options. One guy we haven't really talked about is Yasiel Puig, who played with the Dodgers for a long time, came up with the Dodgers as a rookie in 2013. They eventually traded him to the Reds. He then bounced over to the Indians at the time. And he has not played in the big league since 2019. He had legal issues, still has some ongoing legal issues. He played in the Korean baseball. Most recently he's been playing in Venezuela this winter and just tearing the cover off the ball. He's on the same team as Ronald Acuna and hitting even better than Acuna. He's got a 1364 OPS in the Venezuela league. He's batting .418 with a .518 on base percentage and an .846 slugging percentage. 10 homers, 18 extra base hits in 26 games. Like, he is hitting really, really well. And there was a report last week that he had signed a minor league deal with the Tampa Bay Rays with an invite to spring training. I've confirmed that was incorrect. And so he is still a free agent. You have any thoughts on the idea of bringing Puig back, Vince?
Now, I was a big Puig fan when he first came up. Followed him when they first signed him, was at his debut. Was sad December a few years ago when they traded him. So, yeah, you'd think he'd be on board. It's kind of tough for, someone who hasn't been in the league since 2019 in the major leagues. And we've seen guys go away from the league, have success in other leagues, and then come back and find success here. And, that's still very well possible. And then realistically, if the Dodgers did go after him, it would be a minor league deal with an invite to spring training. No real commitment there in terms of anything. So, it's intriguing for sure. He's on the same team as Miguel Rojas as well. So, the Dodgers would have some intel there if they really were willing to look at this, from Miguel Rojas, a guy that, we know that they trust in terms of, his play. And you would imagine that him knowing what the clubhouse is like and everything else would be part of it because, from what we remember, some of it a little overblown, but, Yasiel Puig was a polarizing figure in a clubhouse. And for everything the Dodgers have had the last few years, regardless of how the season turns out. They've had good clubhouses overall. We haven't really heard anything, or even after the fact, really heard anything, bad. So it's an intriguing idea that, obviously it'd be a cool comeback story, and it fits what the Dodgers need. And like I said, he's hitting well down there, even though, competition is a lot different, but at the very least, whatever he's hitting well down there means he'd hit against bad pitching here or mistake pitches here, which is, something the Dodgers have had issues with the last few years, is hitting mistakes. So, yeah, I'm intrigued, but, it would take a lot to kind of get to that point, I would imagine.
Yeah, one of the interesting things about Puig is his last 2 years with the Dodgers, he was actually significantly worse against left-handed pitching than he was against righties. He had major reverse splits. When he came up, he was kind of your typical splits guy. He mashed lefties, struggled a little more against righties, and then that flipped. And I overall, I guess if you're going to have somebody if you have to choose better against righties or lefties, you choose a guy who's better against righties just because there are more right-handed pitchers. But it's not as extreme as it is, on every little league team. The crazy thing is, like, he did hit better against lefties his last year in the big leagues in 2019, but that's 5 years ago now. And we don't really have access to splits from Korea or Venezuela, so we don't know how well he's hitting lefties these days, but that would be one of the big, I think, question marks for them, and maybe that would prevent them. The other thing is, with his ongoing legal issues, I've done episodes about his legal issues. I do think they are overblown, and I think that he is going to prevail in those legal issues. But with the Dodgers, coming off of Trevor Bauer and Julio Urias, like, I don't know that the Dodgers would be willing right now to sign a guy who is in the middle of legal issues. And maybe even when they get resolved, it might be something that would keep them from maybe showing a lot of interest in Puig.
Yeah, and that makes sense. One of the things with such, the Dodgers are already a high-profile team. But, with the signing in addition of Ohtani and Yamamoto and, kind of a different global aspect to it, I do think, not that they weren't careful before, but I do think that's going to factor in a little more than it did before in terms of types of players they go after. Not types of players, but like players they go after that either have had like checkered past, or even, with Bauer, realistically, when it came down to it, in terms of when they signed him, it was more of nothing legal, but more, social media based and personality based and everything else. So I do think that's something they're going to go after. They will, monitor for sure when they go into it. So yeah, it's a fun story when you think about it, but realistically probably doesn't make sense, and for a few different reasons. But, if everything somehow got cleared or something like that, or, or at the very least, if it's not with the Dodgers, I hope he does maybe catch on with the team, at least get an invite to spring training, and we can watch from afar how he does and still root him on.
Yeah, I'm rooting hard for Puig. He was one of my favorite players, and obviously polarizing, and even, in my own mind, he was polarizing. Like, I had conflicting feelings about him at different times. But, I do think that he is one of the most fun players we've ever gotten to watch with the Dodgers. And I hope, maybe there's been a lot of talk linking him to the Marlins in the past. It never really made a lot of sense to me when Don Mattingly was the Marlins manager, but Mattingly isn't anymore. And so, Schumacher was he teammates with Puig? Was Schumacher on the Dodgers in 2013?
I would imagine he was with them one of those years. Yeah.
Yeah, I can't remember. But obviously Miami is the closest team to Cuba. And feels Miami has a huge Cuban atmosphere. He would feel a lot at home there. So, I hope he gets a shot somewhere. I do think it's probably not going to be with the Dodgers, but I am, wherever he signs, I'm going to be rooting hard for him, except when they're playing against the Dodgers for sure.
Yeah.
I think that's going to wrap it up for our first episode of 2024, the year the Dodgers reclaimed the World Series title. 2024. Start enjoying it now, because we will 20, 30 years from now be looking back on what a great year 2024 was. And so start enjoying it now as a Dodger fan. Get excited about this season, because it's going to be a lot of fun. You have anything else for today's episode, Vince?
No, good episode to go. And like we've, continued to have strong numbers the last few weeks. So if you're sticking around, continue to stick around with us for the rest of this year, because now we're getting close to the fun stuff.
Yeah, we really appreciate it. And we will be back in, we'll be doing this again in like 10 hours. We'll be recording tomorrow morning's episode. It'll probably go up late tonight like it usually does. So thank you all for making us your first listen, especially our everydayers. Thanks for being an everydayer. If you're not an everydayer, it's really easy to become one. Just watch or listen every weekday morning. Remember to check out Locked On Sports Today and Locked On Sports Los Angeles, 2 24/7 streaming channels from the Locked On Podcast Network over on YouTube. Remember to go to joinsubtext.com/LockedOnDodgers to become a Locked On Dodgers insider and get the opportunity to text with us back and forth. It's a lot of fun. You can follow us on Instagram and on Twitter at Locked On Dodgers. Vince is on Twitter at VinceSince91. I'm on Twitter at Snydog. Our DMs are open over there. You can also email us, lockedondodgers@gmail.com, or send us a voicemail or a text message at 323-863-LOCK 5625. We are here every weekday morning, and we hope you'll be here with us. When you get in your car or sit on your couch, tell your smart device to play podcast Locked On Dodgers. And remember, you don't have to agree. You just have to listen. We'll talk to you tomorrow.
Have a good one.